vibes on watches, and what are the things that you guys like to do to introduce that kind of summer vibe into your collection, right? Is it something where you purchase a watch that has summer colors? Is it something where it's a strap change? Do you dedicate specific watches that have functionalities to meet the demands of when you are doing your summertime things, right? When you're going to the beach, maybe you're going to the pool, maybe you're going hiking, right? We have watches that are tools that are going to be more suited for such things. And I want to share with you guys what I like to do with some summer vibe watches as is. So on my left wrist, I have the retrograde from Brew, of course, the Lume dial, Lumi Mint. You guys know because I've shown you that watch before. And that's one of the things that I feel gives a summer vibe. All Lume dials are a thing. And I think that when you have a lot of sunlight and you're doing your thing in the summertime, that's able to absorb a lot of that light, and you're able to enjoy those watches even more because when they light up, when they glow, uh, it hits different. Like a lot of watches that we own have lume in it, and when you get an all lume dial, it's just really, really illuminating. It's just glows tremendously. So if you don't have an all lume dial, listen, I'm not trying to push anything onto you, but if you're in the market, Brew makes a fantastic all lume dial, and I have another watch that I want to show you that has a fantastic all lume dial from Noctua Watches. My boy JP, you guys have seen this watch before. That's another all lume dial. Now, I had to ask to borrow this watch from the wife because you guys know the story. But this is another fantastic, it's upside down, all lume dial from my boy Noctua Watches JP. And two lume dials. If I put both of these on wrist, whoo, you go into the dark, man, you're gonna be illuminated. So very different vibe though, right? This is definitely a tool watch. And you guys seen me put this watch on its bracelet, and it's all bead blasted from the case to the bracelet, looking super toolish. So I absolutely love this watch. It means a lot to me. It's the reason why this video is technically sponsored, because JP did bless the channel with this watch. But even so, even still, and here's the deal, I am biased, just so you know, and I'm biased about the Brew. I'm biased about all the watches that I show you because they're in my collection. Therefore, I must be enthusiastic about them, and that's the reason why I want to talk with him. Michael's in the building. Hello, sir. How are you? Good morning, Skylar. Hello, everyone in chat. Appreciate you, bro, for joining in. And we're talking about summer watches, Michael. So if you want to join in and let me know what your summertime vibe watch is, do tell. So, Noctua Watches, all lume dial, fantastic tool watch. I got the Brew Retrograde, as you guys know. I wanted to showcase these two. And just so you know, on my other wrist, I have this Numoki chronograph. That was the first time they did a mega quartz chronograph. They sent me this prototype. Now, this is technically a prototype because it is a little different from what you'll get when you purchase your own. It usually has the aperture in between the indices here. So that'll be the only difference, but I did build this and I do have to get a video. Moki, if you somehow are listening, I do apologize for the tardiness on getting that video out, but it is built. I did do some recording of me building this watch. So if you guys want to check it out, it's the first time that they've done their quartz watch version for their builds, right? And this was fun, but it was a little challenging, and we'll get to that in the review. So moving on from that, I want to show you guys some more other options that I have in my collection, because here's the deal. I think, well, at least for me, it's very true that summertime watches are a thing, right? Like, I think when we jump into this rabbit hole, we look for more excuses to buy watches. And we know that certain dials, or like I said before, if you do a strap change, right? That's another option if you don't want to purchase a watch and you just want to get that summertime vibe. You can always switch up the strap to something that is maybe a white, maybe it's a yellow, maybe it's a orange, right? Those vibrant colors. I think that that's what connects us to that theme of it being a summertime watch, and you don't necessarily have to buy a whole entire watch. However, I know most of you are going to do it because you're addicts like I am. So that's a whole category in itself, right? And I have a lot of options. I got a couple of them next to me, and I want to show you guys that. I'm always on the hunt for a yellow dial watch for a summer. Yeah, a yellow. Do I have a yellow dial? I don't think I have a dude. I have a first world problem of having to actually check the watches that are in my collection. Now I keep track of what's in my collection through watch Crunch because they have where you can input what you have in your collection and you could check. But dude, I feel the same way. I go and I'm like, do I need a yellow dial? I don't know. I have to go check my collection to make sure that that's something that I actually need. So a yellow dial for sure, like, especially if you're talking about, let's say, like a Doxa yellow, right? That really vibrant, really rich kind of yellow colorway to it. That's definitely a super option. I'm probably going to be on the hunt for that as well. But I got something that is similar to such. And you guys know that I commandeered this Saint Martin, right? And that gives you that kind of like fume, transitional to darker on the edges, lighter in the center. And that for me was a fantastic summertime vibe. I actually paid this full price. I loved what San Martin was doing. We know that they're doing more watches that are to their own style, right? They're stepping away from doing just homage watches and they're doing more of their own unique style. And even more so with their sister company with Zhenghong, right? Zhenghong is completely going to be a web-based brand that is giving you different iterations in watches that you haven't seen before. So if you guys haven't seen what they've been up to, follow them on Instagram, and check out the post because they're giving you a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. And we're talking about Zhenghong, the sister company of San Martin, to what they're working on as far as case dimensions and different colorways. Like they're just really trying to give you something different. And I think that that's an important category in watch collecting because oftentimes we get burnt out from designs that we've seen over and over again, especially when you have a lot of off-the-shelf parts. And with them, they're doing a lot of case designs that are not off the shelf, like the San Martin. Like this is more of like the typical design that you would see for a diver. And by the way, this is a Montrose leather strap. It's absolutely supple, Epson leather. And it gave that summertime vibe. It tied in the chapter ring, right? Or I should say, yeah, chapter ring, rehaut. It's all the same when it comes to this watch. It kind of has that tealish blue and matched that perfectly with this strap and it went well. So that's definitely for me a super summertime vibe. 200 meters of water resistance. We talked about how specifications could play a role into what you choose for your summertime watch. And that may be a thing for you if you are going to be very active in doing aquatic things and or if you're just doing hiking, maybe you're exercising outside. There's a lot of different ways you could tackle that. There's a lot of ways you could slice that apple, and that's going to transition me to the next watch that I want to show you guys, because that is going to be the category of a beater watch, or at least a watch that can take a lot of damage, right? And that is going to be the Casio. Now, I purchased the Casio, and for whatever reason, I didn't vibe with the stock casing around it, that rubber casing that you get around the case itself and the strap that comes with it. Not to say that it was bad, it wasn't poor. Uh, but for some reason, I changed the iteration to a metal case. You guys seen my Casio with that metal case. It didn't vibe with me for some reason. It was black PVD coated, but for some reason, I don't know what it was, but I didn't connect to it. However, I went on AliExpress and I found a super affordable case for it. And now I absolutely love it. So let me show you guys what that looks like because it also gives me that summertime vibe. And if I'm doing any exercising, any kind of like lifting weights or doing calisthenics or whatever the case may be. So it has a transparent case and then it has the white strap. And I think that that pulls it together nicely to give that kind of summertime vibe to it, right? I feel personally, I don't know if you feel this way, let me know in chat. Do you feel like white then makes it feel like a summertime vibe? Because white in sunlight, that super clean look, right? Maybe you have a white tee on, maybe you have a wife beater on, whatever. That kind of goes with the kind of white theme that you would get out of straps for your watches as well. And this came as a set, and I'll link in the description of this when I'm done with the live to where I got it from the store that I got it. And after that, I just really felt like this really connected the dots for me, man. That translucent kind of casing with the white strap. And I could change this color out to whatever I want. I probably want to change it maybe to like a black later on when summer's over. Because June 20th is the first day of summer, so we're trying to get prepared on this channel. Um, so that for me worked. And this is also a solar powered movement, right? So that's another thing, right? That's another thing to consider for your summertime watch, right? Do you want something that's going to be solar powered because you know you're going to get a lot more daylight, hopefully in the summer? So far, it's not technically summer in New York, but we've been getting a lot of rain, a lot of cloudy weather. However, I'm hoping the next month will be a lot more sunnier, and therefore we'll charge this bad boy flawlessly. And yeah, man, this is just to pick it up, ready to go. You can, because this is Bluetooth, sync it to your phone and then set the timing and do all the settings that you want to. So that I thought was also super cool rather than getting the version that isn't uh, Bluetooth connectivity. And I think also when it's not Bluetooth, it's also battery powered only versus getting an actual solar powered watch. So that's an actual summertime vibe that matches with the theme of being more active and going out and doing whatever you want to do and not having to worry about it getting beat up. In striking contrast to that, for the next watch that I want to show you guys, it's not going to be a watch that you could beat up at all. So I want to show you guys that watch because it does still fit the theme for summertime vibe, but this is more so like if I'm going out, and just hanging with the fellas or hanging with the wife, we're going out for drinks, we're going out for a restaurant, whatever. Uh, I've got this moon swatch. Yeah. Got the moon swatch. This is the mission to Pluto, right? And I put this on also a white band because, again, for me, the white strap makes me feel like it's a summertime vibe. This is also a Montrose strap. I love Montrose straps, the FKM to the leather, super, you know what. So that's just how I get down. Now, do I wear this all? Is this an everyday watch? Absolutely not. I don't want to put it through the rigmarole of being an everyday watch because sometimes for work I'm doing some things with my hands or I'm lifting stuff that are heavy, whatever the case may be. So I use this just to like go out, relax. I double wrist, so most of the time I'll double wrist this with another watch too, and it is super lightweight. You guys know the deal with this already. This is the original one. They have different iterations now. They didn't stop, but I'm not going to ride that train. If you like to collect all the moon swatches, more power to you. But for me, one and done was kind of cool. And I didn't even fall for the Blanc Pawn version either, even though it had an automatic movement in it. I just felt like this was enough for me to get that kind of vibe, and it all fit within the same category. I'm completely on board with the solar watches. Casio and Citizens are killing it with solar. Absolutely, dude. And I have a Citizen. So I'll also throw in the mix, Michael, the Seiko Arni, right? The Seiko Arni is a solar powered watch. You could get a couple of Seikos that are also solar powered, but I agree with you that Casio and Citizen, especially, I want to up my game with Citizen. I want to up my conversational skills with the knowledge that Citizen has, aside from the whole Miyota talk and the movements. Because I think that overall, even outside of the solar movements for Citizen, they've been doing fantastic things and they kind of fly under the radar for some reason. I don't see a lot of coverage for Citizen watches. I have the Blue Angels, which is solar powered. It is also radio tower controlled, but they make fantastic watches, and that watch is incredibly accurate, of course. And they just have that reputation, and all the way down to their divers, especially. Like Citizen has really been doing a fantastic job keeping up with their reputation throughout the years. And most recent times, they're actually impressing a lot of people. But for some reason, I feel like it flies under the radar. Now, Casio, you mentioned, Michael, is not the case, right? I think Casio, just by me having this conversation with you now and showing you this Casio G-Shock, they're always in the conversation, I think. They are the legendary company for doing their thing, and a lot of people have multiple Casios and G-Shocks in their collection for that reason. So for sure, they're never going to not be talked about, I think. I think when it comes to Casio, they're always going to be part of the conversation. And the nice thing about them is they go into anybody's collection. It really doesn't matter how you like to collect at that point. I think everybody tries at least somewhere down the line, whatever works for you, whether it be their squares, whether it be their Casiokes, whether it be the F91, whatever. There's some room in the collection nonetheless for the Casios, and they go strong for sure. So I want to start paying more attention to Citizen. Maybe I connect the dots with ADs to get new iterations that come in, but I definitely want to show them some love. Some love. Can you show the Omega collection you have? I can't show you the only Omega collection that I have. This is gonna piss people off. Is the swatch that it's a listen. Hey. Ooh, it says Omega on there. I'm just saying. I'm just trolling. I don't have a Omega collection. Omega and every other brand that's within that category is further than what I'm comfortable spending right now. I'll say that, right? I like to get more watches in my collection, and I swap them out based on how I'm transitioning as a collector, right? And I'll be honest, the needle is getting moved up a little bit more. And I'm sure over time I will add an Omega to my collection. I will add a Rolex to my collection. But I'm gonna baby step it. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that's gonna happen too. I have my eyes set on a Longines Conquest. And I think that's gonna be the first step into it. And for me, just saying, you may disagree, uh, my Tissot PRX, Swiss made movement. Now I know all the controversy around it. Say what you will, but that watch feels fantastic and buttery smooth, even though it's on a bracelet on the wrist. So for me, stepping into the first level of that whole luxury brand section, right? That is where I first transitioned for that kind of watch. And the next step for me is probably going to be a Longines. And the reason why is not only the price point, right? To step into Longines, I think you go Tissot, Longines. From there, maybe you can go Tudor, Omega. You know, there's a lot of different directions you could go. And I'm not the professional when it comes to talking about luxury brands, right? So I'm shooting off the hip. But I think that there are steps, monetary wise, money wise, where you can step into that luxury brand space and kind of find your fitting for that. And I wanted to have more experience with watches and what I really want before I spend that kind of money, which is not a strange thing. I've talked to a lot of people who are new collectors. They feel the same way. They're apprehensive, even if it's a $300-500 purchase. Realize that for a mechanical watch and for a person who've never purchased a watch before in their life, right? They may not even have the Apple Watch at that point. That's a lot of money. It's perspective and it's relative to your buying power and everything else, cost of living and what you have after the fact. So that's going to be my next step. I'm probably going to go into either a Longines Conquest or a Squale, right? We talk about, I think Squale can be considered almost a luxury-ish brand. Right? Talking about price point, talking about history, it matches the mold for being qualified to speak on that kind of term, right? Like they have the history with their divers. They're wildly popular. They have very, very sexy models for sure, and they're up there in price. And when I say up there in price, they're about like 1,500, 2,000 for brand new. So I think that as an independent brand interest, Squale is on my radar. Longines, definitely history, definitely history. We all know that they have the longest standing logo, right? They have the longest standing logo in history, I believe. I think they outbeat every other company. So I would probably wear a Longines for sure, and they make fantastic watches. So from what I've heard from other watch collectors and those who are within that realm more than I am, they're like, yeah, bro, Longines is fire. Like you could definitely go with Longines and not have to worry about anything. And then from there, you know, keep going up and up. So what's your most exclusive watch? My most exclusive watch? I don't really. So it depends on how you define exclusive. Because I could say that my SKX009, right? Because you can't really buy that new. You could technically still purchase that aftermarket, but they're no longer producing that for a very long time. And we just talked about how Seiko on the last live is not holding their weight when it comes to their 5KX renditions. I could say that that's pretty exclusive. My Venetianico Nerede Audio, that one is a gold-plated dial. That one definitely gives me a luxury feel. That one is also up there in price. And I do feel that that strikes all of the things that I need to feel for luxury at this point. Although I felt like there could have been a little bit more improvements in that watch, especially in the category that they were pushing it to. And that's the thing. We're talking about Venetianico now because you asked about the watch, and they're starting to crack through different ceilings. They now have an in-house movement, the V5000 or V7000, one of those two. And it's an in-house movement at this point, and they already sold out on that watch, and that was extremely higher than their price point that they normally float around. So they're normally around, like, I want to say the $500 mark, maybe a little bit more to like the $1,200-1,500 mark, maybe 2,000, because they also have a mechanical chronograph, right? I've been also having my eyes on that as well because it hasn't been talked about that much, the watch. It's like a Panda style or a reverse Panda. They have different iterations for it. But as far as exclusivity, dude, I don't really have watches that you can't buy, and that ties into my history getting into watch collecting. Because when I first started, I consumed a lot of content for 2 years or three, I would say 3 years before I even touched a watch show, right? My first watch show was Wind Up 2023, where that just blew my mind, and that's what got me into talking about web-based brands the most. Um, but before that, honestly, I collected watches that were iconic and that were well recognized within the community because I felt like I didn't know what I was doing, right? And I didn't feel comfortable going off on my own. I could have done more research and I could have waited, but you guys know the itch to put something in your collection. So if you look at my early watch collections like the SKX009J1 or the SNJ025 Seiko Arnie, you know, the Citizens Blue Angel, like those were all names that you know by me just saying it. And that's why I felt comfortable doing it and going that route because they were, I said, listen, if a lot of people are talking about that watch and saying that it's a decent watch, then it must be a decent watch. And if I like the way that that watch is composed, that's why I pulled the trigger. Now, there are other reasons why I did so. For instance, the SKX009, I pulled the trigger on that right before you couldn't get that brand new. The 007 was already couldn't find it brand new unless you were doing a third party. But the 009 at the time when I purchased it, I want to say 4 years ago or 3 years ago, it was still on Amazon. So it was hiked up on price already from Amazon, but you were still able to get access to it. And I'm really happy that I grabbed that one because it is an iconic watch and Seiko hasn't outdone it yet. And eventually they will. It will cost a significant, and when I say significant, it's going to be a significant amount of money versus what it used to be in the past, because they're going to throw it in their prospects lineup and they're going to throw a couple of improvements to it. For sure, it's going to have hacking, hand winding. Hopefully, it's still 200 meters and like a true diver certified 200 meters. If Seiko decides to do that, how did you rope me into talking about my last live? I see what you did there. Yeah, Jedi. But I'm super happy that I put that in my collection for that reason, because it can't be got no more unless you pay a significant price for it. Trap Vision is in the building. Ask for the devil and he may appear. What's up, bro? So yeah, man, that's just how and it's all affordable watches, dude. Like I don't have anything like price wise early on in my collection that would have impressed you if that was your type of thing. And if it is, that's cool. Because there's other things that go with that price, right? We just spoke about luxury brands and how, there is a price factor, but there's a lot of history within it. And guess what? Yes, I am interested in moving forward and starting to collect those watches as well for that reason, right? I always said, even though I always showcase affordable watches, that those brands pave the roads. And I had a great conversation with a watch enthusiast. We did a recording together and it's going to be out soon, hopefully that video. And I don't want to spill the beans. I don't know if he wants me to talk about it before it's out, but he brought up a good point on there to say that if it weren't for luxury brands kind of missing the mark sometimes on listening to the community. Now listen to what I'm saying. I'm not throwing any shade. I'm only talking about, and this came from him, and he's a luxury brand collector. If it wasn't for them not listening to the community and missing the marks, and it doesn't just go for luxury brands, right? I think Seiko's opened the doors for a tremendous amount of companies. One off the hip is Islander. I have one with me because that's with that summertime vibe, and I'm going to show you guys. But it's not just luxury brands, right? It's established big brands that don't listen to the nerds, right? You and me and everybody else watching this right now, we're the super nerds. And when we say we want quick release on the next watch, we want quick release on the next watch. And if we don't get it fair, they're allowed to produce whatever watch they want to produce. I'm not that mad at Seiko for the 5KX. It is a little, I'm peeved. I'm not angry about that, yes? But Seiko's not the only person. There's a lot of brands that are bigger that if they were to listen to a group of nerds, if they just went to one watch event, they would drastically get feedback and be able to produce a watch that would fit the mold for more of them. And you could say that that's not their market, and you're right. Maybe their market isn't just the watch enthusiasts that go to shows and the watch nerds like you and I. However, who's more likely to buy the next watch? Is it the person who bought their first watch and possibly will never be into watches as enthusiastically as we are? Or is it the guy who has 100 watches and has no limit to how many watches he's going to put in my collection? Is that fair? So I think that if you start dropping bombs in between the different iterations that you're doing already, like if we're taking Seiko for an example, no problem. Do your turtles, do your samurais, do whatever you want to do for the alpinists. Keep on par with what you want to do. But when we're screaming from the top of a rooftop on the 5KX and we're weighing and measuring it to the SKX constantly, maybe you want to give that a go. You know what I mean? Because what happens then is that you and I put that into our collection. They come out with a Prospex, let's say SKX model. We put that into our collection, and then what are we gonna do? We're not gonna shut up about it, right? We're gonna say how, oh, this was so great that they did a new iteration. They came out with a blah, 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 blah. Next thing you know, there's videos and there's talk, and then I'm talking to a new watch collector, you're talking, and then those new watch collectors are gonna take the advice that we're giving or the enthusiastic that we're coming from, because again, that's how I got influenced early on. And you're going to sell watches even to the people that are not so nerdy. So I think it's a kill two birds with one stone, if you will, at that point. Just saying, rant over. What are we talking about? We have so many options out there. Research, research, research. Yes, absolutely great advice. If anybody's who's watching this is new to watch collecting, the more research you do, the better. But I think that there's also a part where it's like, all right, you've done enough research. You got to just jump in the pool. You can't overthink it as well. However, you do want to make sure that you want to do your due diligence to make sure that that watch is going to fit the mold for what you're putting it in your collection for. And I'll add to that, part of your research should be actually putting watches on your wrist. Go to an AD, go to a web-based brand show, right? Get these watches on there, talk to other people in the community, get more information. This way you can prevent buyer's remorse. And that's what everybody who's new to watch collecting is so afraid of. It's like, here I go, I'm gonna spend hundreds of dollars on a mechanical watch, what I would wildly never imagine. And I'm not sure if this is the right move. Well, part of that is actually getting your own experience with the watch. And it doesn't have to be buying a whole bunch of watches, but it should be part of you going to shows or going to ADs. Whatever it puts you in front of multiple watches early on will give you that insight to see if that fits not only for your wrist, for your style, the thickness, the diameter, and everything else of alike, if you will. I'm currently wearing my Orient Bambino Generation 4. Nice, Michael. I have an Orient Bambino. It doesn't get a lot of love, man. It was one of those, another one of those watches. A shout out to Teddy Baldessar when he started talking about the, him and everybody else, but when he talked about the Orient Bambino, man, that classic look, that dressy look, their in-house movements, they're part of Seiko, the Epson Group. You can't go wrong with Orient. You definitely can't go wrong with them. They have their Orient Star, they have their Makos, their divers. They're part of that conversation that we were talking about with Citizen. So that's an absolute monster of a watch as well. I just am not so much into that dressier kind of look as much as I thought I would be, but still, it still gets on my wrist. I still rotate them enough, and I keep track of how I rotate my watches. Let's throw that in the mix. I want to know how you guys rotate your watches in your collection, especially if you have a sizable collection that is, let's say, 50 plus or 100 plus, or hell, even if it's 10, 5, whatever. How do you guys rotate your watches in your collection? How do you keep track of what you're wearing? For me, this is what works for me. I actually have my watch collection in Watch Crunch, and when you post your watch for the day, it then gives you feedback on when and how often you're wearing that watch. It'll literally tell you you wore this watch 2 months ago, and that's usually like my average, just to give you guys the idea. I've gotten it down a little smaller, double wristing, but when you get to like 50 watches, yeah, double wristing almost comes with the territory if you want to rotate the watches enough where you feel comfortable, because you start doing math, man. You start going, okay, there's 12 months in a year. If I'm wearing a watch every 2 months, now it keeps it funky fresh, right? It keeps that thirst for that watch if you put it down and you haven't put it on for another 2 months. But at the same time, I want to feel comfortable with having a healthy rotation, and I'm also interested in keeping track of what watches I'm just not interested in putting on my wrist, therefore ready to let go or move on from, which I have a handful of those, and that's just the way I like to keep track of my collection. And some people do Excel sheets, some people do a notebook, right? There's different ways that you can keep up with what watch you're putting into the rotation. I like to go the digital way. Watch Crunch added that feature, So why not, utilize that? And it literally gives you like a pie graph and everything else. It's fantastic work, man. If that platform in itself, what was just that, then it would still be worth it because it's helping you keep track of your collection and you could put all the specifications into it. You could put, where you bought it, how much you bought it, the specifications to the sizing, to the this, like it's very, very thorough. And there's people out there that are super nerdy about that. So I thought that was super cool to add that in there as well. My watch rotation is based on my work schedule and YouTube lives. That makes sense. The least worn are reserved for vacation. Yeah, okay, that's and listen, that's part of the conversation today, Travis. Uh, we're talking about summertime vibe watches, and for me, still rotate the watches that I consider my summertime watches throughout the entire year. However, there's a little bit more of an attraction to a particular watch. Like if we're talking about, again, the this watch here, we're talking about the Mission to Pluto. I'm trying to look for my San Martin, or we're talking about the Noctua all lume dial, right? We have the Brew retrograde. Um, it doesn't matter, man. It doesn't matter. And this one for sure gives me that summertime vibe, right? So it's not that this sits in the watch box waiting for summer. That doesn't happen. It still gets on my wrist throughout. However, there's a little bit more excitement to wrist this watch when it is summer. And I think we have several categories. Travis just mentioned that he does his thing on vacation. He has watches that he specifically takes with him. I think that that's a legitimate category too. I think that there's something to say about being in a country or being in a territory that you're not familiar with or comfortable with. It may be a safety thing. It may be something where you don't want to worry about if you do lose the watch, you don't take a big hit. There's a lot of different things that go into it. You may travel a lot and you need a GMT, right? You want to track your home time and everything else. And you may be able to wrap that all into one ball with an NH34 movement, because at this point, we have movements that are affordable that can do that GMT function, whether it be office or true trav, and not have to worry about that watch costing thousands and thousands of dollars just in case a situation happens. You know what I mean? Up to 23-day rotation and repeat. Okay, when wearing that watch after 3 weeks, it's a the honeymoon is all over again. I do swap midday, and that's another thing too. Yes, to the next, enjoy 2 per day, rotating, nice. So that is also another tactic. I double wrist so I can get up to 4 watches a day. So when you talk about wanting to get through your collection in a healthy rate where you feel like you can justify having that many watches instead of it collecting dust, hopefully it's not. That's also a thing too. Some people change their watches midday. Some people have a work watch. Some people have, all right, I'm at home. Let me rotate maybe to the watch that's going to happen tomorrow, or let me rotate to the watch that I'm going to go out with. That's for sure a thing. And 23 is a sweet number. And I always told myself I wanted to be at 31. There's 31 days in the longest month of the year. And therefore, I felt if I stuck to that number, it would be tremendously easy to do 1 watch a day per month. Obviously, you'll have a lap over when it's not 31 days. But that would make a lot more sense for me, especially if I was just putting 1 watch on my wrist, but I put 2 on, so I justified having more than that. But listen, if you don't want a double wrist, it's not for everyone. It does. You will get looks. You will get looks. And you will get comments. I legitimately was at the USPS wearing 2 watches, and the guy was like, do you have 2 watches on? I go, yeah. He's like, why? And I'm like, because 1 watch is not enough for me. He's like, oh, okay. He's like, so he wouldn't let me off the hook. I'm telling you guys this story because some people, I get a lot of like, are you wearing 2 watches? And sometimes a why. But this guy wouldn't let me off the ropes. He was like, are you tracking another time zone? And I'm like, nah. I'm like, no other time zone. I just like wearing 2 watches. He's like, oh, okay. He took a couple seconds to think, and then he's like, so you're flexing. And I go, nah, dude, this is all affordable stuff. I'm not, I must have been in a good mood because I would have told him something else if I wasn't. But I was like, nah, dude, it's not a flex neither. It's just, this is just how I get down, Charlie Brown. I didn't say that, but you know what I mean? In my head, I did. I said, nah, it's not a flex. It's just how I like to roll. He goes, oh, okay. He scanned my package, right, to go mail it out. And then he goes, you know, they have like a mental clinic right up the right up the block. And I was like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I was like, I'm already checked in. I'm already checked in. I gave him a wink. So if you double wrist, you will get feedback, just so you know. But I don't care. My wife doesn't even like the fact that I double wrist. She hates it sometimes. She's like, yo, you look crazy. Then I put the bracelet on my wrist too. You know what I mean? I don't care. Watches are for me, and how I like to wear it is for me. So at the end of the day, I don't care how it looks to the world. I don't care how people feel about it. I truly don't. And you kind of have to have that thick skin if you go to dive into that. Just saying. Lone Ranger's in the building. Hi ho, Silva. Hooray! Invicta is reserved for vacation. I'm not. Oh, you did say that in the other live. I'm not worried about getting robbed. Plus, I get some of them to knock a fool who's trying me. Yeah, those watches are heavy, bro. Listen, I have two Invicta watches in my collection. I'm probably gonna move on from them only because, dude, they're so heavy. And as I'm getting older, it's more about comfort than anything else. Even with clothes, or it doesn't matter what the category is. They're just so heavy, but I do love them. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna move on from them. I got the Joker. Yeah, I got the Joker, the big gaudy Joker faced Invicta. That I do have. Why? Because I love that ugly thing. And I wear it once a year. I wear it during Halloween, and that's it. And I really bought that watch just to collect it, and that was like the only watch that I bought to collect. I have another one that has a multicolor on it, same thing, super big, 53, 54 millimeter, whatever the case may be. They're just heavy, man. And that one is on bracelet. Both are on bracelet, I believe. Yeah, both are on bracelet. So yeah, yeah. Just for me, it's if the Invicta did titanium, and I'm sure they did titanium in some of their models down the way. But anybody who does that oversized watch, where we're talking about breaking the norms of like a past the 42, anywhere into the 50s, I think you should do it titanium. And yes, I'm talking specifically only for my wrist, but I'm saying it solves that heavy, and it will still have some heft to it, right? At the end of the day, it's still a large watch, but I feel like it would be a lot more comfortable. It would feel more like a Casio, right? Like, I don't know the dimensions on this Casio, but it's not a small watch. However, this is a translucent case on it, and it weighs barely nothing. And therefore, I don't mind the size. I don't even mind a super big thickness. I'm in the mood for it sometimes. All the way down to having a 34 millimeter watch, right? It's just mood. It's just a matter of comfort when it comes down to it. So that's what I'm saying. It's the Oracle. You tell him you're a Skylar. Mother loving Santana. I do what I want. Yeah, man. Listen. I played back the scenario in my head because I was like, yo, this guy went in, and I must have been in a good mood, man, because it would have went a completely different way had I not been. Let me scroll up to make sure I didn't miss anything on chat. Then I want to show you guys my other watch that I have here, and the theme is summertime vibes. For sure, that's what we're talking about overall, but I get caught up into different categories. I'm currently wearing I read that one. Itchy. Itchy. I got a few watches because of that itch. Yeah, I'm currently fighting the itch on buying a Christopher Ward. Damn that itch. Yeah, dude. I think everybody here knows exactly what you're going through. I've given different advices for scratching that itch. Sometimes a strap change can do that for the watches you have. Sometimes you have to do a modification. Sometimes you have to do both. I would employ maybe going down that hole if you don't want to completely add another watch to your collection, but it's your wrist, it's your money, it's your way. Have it your way. That's what BK said. I think that was everything. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to show you guys one more watch. I rock larger dial watches, 40 millimeter, 42 millimeter. I've got an 8-inch wrist. That makes sense. Making anything smaller than 40 millimeters looks toyish. Yeah, dude. And look, you may feel that way personally for your wrist on a watch that's smaller than a 40. And an 8-inch wrist is a big wrist, yeah. And you probably got that round wrist, that round sucker wrist, that mongoloid wrist. So I get it. But at the end of the day, bro, no matter how big or small, I mean, if your wrist is really small and you have a really large watch, at the end of the day, it's your wrist, right? Who am I to judge? Just like how I told you, I'm cool with wearing two watches, no problem. If that's what floats your boat, but now if you feel like it looks toyish for your wrist and you don't want to do that, and that's not how you like to vibe, then I understand that. I understand that for sure. But I have a 7 1/4 inch wrist. I'm comfortable with anywhere from a 38 39, maybe up to a 42 even. Um, but at the end of the day, I have a 36 as well. I have a vintage watch, and I love that thing when I wear it. I have an F91W. Now, when I first started collecting, I was more towards the bigger size watches for sure. That's when I added the Invictus into my collection, and I was really big on having that presence on my wrist. I loved it at that time. And I had a smaller watch from Casio, and I felt the same way as you did. I felt like, man, this looks toyish on my wrist. I don't really vibe with it. I don't really jive with it. But somewhere along the line that changed. I don't know what happened. And all the way down to an F91W, you know how small and how thin that watch is. Maybe the fact that it's a legendary watch, maybe it's the fact that I customize it. I don't know. But I was extremely comfortable with it at the end of the day. And I rock that thing. I mostly double wrist it. That's something that I like to do when I double wrist too, guys. Some people like to double wrist the smartwatch. And then they have their quartz, mechanical, soul, whatever, on their other wrist. I was doing that for a while as well. I stopped doing that because I don't even charge my Apple Watch anymore. That just sits in the drawer. It's not for me. So what I like to do moving forward sometimes, most of the time, is I'll have my F91W. I don't have it today, but you can see this is a smaller watch. This is from Namoki. This is a new chronograph that they've released for you to build. But usually a smaller watch. I love this kind of expanding, because here's the other thing people don't talk about, and you don't really know unless you double wrist or you've at least tried to wear your watch on the other wrist. If you've calibrated, you like that? If you calibrated your watch and it's a bracelet, this is not a bracelet, but if you had a bracelet on your left wrist and you went to put it on your right wrist, it's slightly different. It will be, for me, my right wrist is slightly tighter than when I have that perfect fit for my left hand or my left wrist at that point. And I've noticed that that's a thing. So to get away from that, I have this Expando band bracelet. And that helps me either put it on this wrist or that wrist. Or you could do leather and everything else and adjust it from the holes. Or if you have a on-the-fly adjustment, that's a thing too. But I don't really hear anybody talking about those kind of struggles, those those kind of first world struggles, right? Going from left to right on wrist. So that's how I like to actually, and now my F91W, as you guys know, incredibly accurate. I like to put incredibly accurate watches on my right wrist. I usually like to have it as a quartz. That helps me feed the left wrist, which is usually mechanical, not today, right? This is technically quartz, but that's usually how I divvy it up. And the F91W keeps me on par for a lot of watches when I put it on, and when I put it with the bracelet. I just love the look and the fact that I customized the polarized film to be a blue. You guys seen it before. Oh man, and then I put the Vario leather strap on there. Mwah, chef's kiss, just saying. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? My wrist check. Jack Mason Hydro. Man, that Jack Mason, I bet you that Jack Mason is still on a strap, bro. Tell me right now and don't lie. Tell me right now and don't lie. I bet you that Jack Mason is still on the strap. And he said it's supple rubber. Oh yeah, you said it though. There you go. I took my risk at 39 millimeters and it worked. I have an 8-inch wrist. There you go. There you go. And here's the thing, your tastes evolves over time. So if you in the beginning of watch collecting didn't like a smaller watch, but down the road years later you find a smaller watch that you really jive with, maybe retry putting on that watch on your wrist to see how you feel about it. You may change your mind. That watch may wear, I know people get like a little annoyed by saying, what do you mean the watch wears like a blah, blah, blah? It's either a this or a that. But just the way that it's conformed, right? Maybe it's a square watch, maybe it's a circle watch. You know, maybe that smaller watch in the dimensions changes the proportions for what you feel comfortable with originally, and that may change your mind. Or I might convince you to double wrist and put that small watch on the right wrist, or however way you want to do it, and put your larger watch on the other wrist. Can I convince you? I don't know, probably not. Wrist check, Zelos. Of course you have a Zelos on, bro. You have the Zelos logo. 2021 Zelos Horizons 43 millimeter stainless steel teal on the Zelos FKM blue rubber strap, fire, 47 out of 120. Yeah, exclusivity when it comes to Zelos for sure. Bracelets on the right wrist. Got you. So the last watch that I want to show you guys that are summer vibes, and I've seen this watch before, but I got to bring it up again. Shout out to my man Mark from Long Island Watch. This is the ISL 245 Miata 9075 Port Jefferson. Customized bezel, of course, because here's the deal. I wanted to bring out what was happening to the dial to the actual bezel insert. Sorry, Mark, not sorry. The black one that he provided was fantastic, don't get me wrong, and it was actually more illuminated with lume on the numerals on that chapter ring. But I wanted this watch for a summertime vibe, and I wanted to extend what was going on in the dial. So I hit up somebody who does custom bezel inserts, because here's what you can't do. You can't take an Islander ISL 245 specifically and just go on AliExpress and swap that out. That ain't gonna work. That'll work for an SKX, that'll work for a bunch of Seiko watches, that'll even work for some, but I'm telling you right now, just the way that this is conformed, this bezel insert, the dimensions on it, has to be custom. So I found somebody, shout out to JP, he gave me a name, and I was able to do that, and I love this thing now. I mean, I loved it before, but now you can't leave. I love this thing, man, and I love, and as you guys know, Mark is a giant when it comes to advertising and thinking outside the box and pivoting and trying and testing things. So if you guys don't know, he's doing a buyback program. It's probably filled its quota now because he tests the waters with, I think, 50 people that he was willing to buy back the watches at 100%. That's insanity. Let's talk about that. So if you, what are you saying, Skylar? So if you bought this ISO 245 Miyota 9075 Porsche, I just like saying, if you bought this at, let's say, what was the price for this? 5 and change, I want to say 600, maybe sub 6. If you purchase that watch and it's in good condition and it's not torn to bits, he'll buy that back at 100%, to which now it's store credit, to be fair. And then you could roll that into the next watch that you want. Now, I think what he mentioned was if you don't use the full amount, you lose it. But here's why it's still a fantastic thing. If I saw something on his website, and it's only for his Islander watches, it's not for all the other brands that he carries, to be fair. But if I saw an Islander watch that was more expensive, but I wasn't really ready years ago to pull the trigger, and I took care of my watches, and I wanted to get into that program, and I didn't have, let's say, $1,000 at that time, but I do have now money invested, right? Now we can actually, with that program, call this an investment because he's willing to give you 100%. You could now trade that in. I think you have to send it in. They have to inspect it to make sure that it's of quality that they're expecting to give you that credit for. You can put that money towards the watch that you didn't or couldn't get at that point in time without having to worry about selling this watch, or if you're just ready to move on for it. So there's specific scenarios that have to happen in order to make that work, to be fair. But I think it's a fantastic program, and I know he's testing the waters with, I think, 50 people. It's probably already filled, but I think that that's super, super cool, and I'm a big advocate for Island Watch. I'm a big advocate for Brew watches, because I'm saying this over and over again. We have to support our brands that are in the backyard. So I show them quite often, and then outside of the backyard, I have my Canadian brother, JP Noctua Watches, that I fully endorse and support for his brand, and yes, I am biased. Just saying. But listen, the watch is fantastic. The watch is fantastic, undeniably. And I think that he kind of took the approach, kind of like how Islander did, right? If you look at that watch, you definitely see Seiko, you definitely see Sin. At the end of the day, it's that diver style, toolish look that you could definitely, and I even compared it to the SKX 007, right? This is the all lume dial. He has a whole black dial, but having that bead blast throughout, having that bead blast on the bracelet itself, fantastical, fantastical. I've settled into a particular brands now. Zelos and Islanders are, yeah, Zelos is another name. Fantastic. I don't have my Zelos on me, are just a few brands. Yeah, man. And I have a whole nother topic that we're going to talk about on another live, where I want to hear about the feedback that you guys have on who is the elitist when it comes to web-based brands. Like, who are you putting at the top of the charts, right? Because I want to hear the different answers, because we're going to get different answers if that question is asked, because we value watches in a very wildly different way sometimes. Some people value more of the movement, the finishing. You know, we all value the same things, but where they are on that list is wildly different. So I want to hear from you guys on the next live. We'll save it for that. About what you guys can think. So if you want to start doing your homework now on what you think your answer will be, that'll be cool to have a conversation about that. Islanders does nice collabs and builds. For sure, dude. Like, and he does a lot of meaningful collabs. I gotta open the door for a second. He does a lot of meaningful collaborations where like right now he's doing the Varsity. I don't know if you guys saw the Varsity collaboration that he's doing. He's taking young athletes that are sponsoring them, and the money's being donated to those schools and stuff like that. So constantly doing collaborations. He put it out there that he wants to do collaborations with watch enthusiasts or content creators that are watch enthusiasts as well. So he's putting it out there. And listen, it's a smart move. You have to continue to pivot, to grow, to think of things that, because I think that that's what he's doing, right? He's like, okay, well, what are brands not doing that I could possibly do to make things work? And he's doing things in a wildly successful way. So I think that he's on the right track, and I'm always going to be a fan. And especially if somebody asked me, like, well, what watch brand do you recommend? He's definitely on the top of the list when it comes to what watch brand I would recommend. I would say, dude, if you haven't heard of Islander and you haven't bought your first mechanical watch, the deals that you can get on it, because it fits the mold for different conversations. We talked about this on the last live for the SKX, and I keep bringing it up, but it's a point to be made that there are still people, and if you're looking at the 5KX, getting into watch collecting for that model, for that watch, for their first mechanical watch, and now he's taken that mold and just improved on it, and doing all these collaborations with, like, let's say, like how you mentioned, Urban Gentry, right? So tons of collaborations with not only watch content creators, but also meaningful ones that have a lot of impact behind it and a lot of different motivation to it in that accord, if you will. But a fantastic brand to introduce everywhere from, like, I wouldn't consider his watches to be competing with Formex or Christopher Ward, right? I think you could agree that there are a different category or a different realm that we want to introduce when we're talking about that kind of level. So if you're talking about like a beginner watch, Zelos is a name, Brew is a name, Islander is a name. There's a whole bunch of different names that I feel like Spinnaker, and we're talking about also price point, but also what you're going to get into the watches and what you expect to pay. Because normally on a web-based brand, when you're paying a lot more money, like the thousands of dollars, you're getting a lot of not only specifications, but redesigns, reimagines. You're getting a lot of innovation in watches as well. Some brands, like I would say Notice, is also known for doing the innovative part with their Nodex clasp. I get that that's only a on the fly release, but they also do things with ball bearings inside of their bezels. They also slim down cases for the NH movements. So there are things that they put towards their watches where they're like not as innovative as, let's say, Formex, but that doesn't mean that they can't compare. It just means that Formex is giving you a suspension inside of the watch, right? Which I don't know how you feel about that as far as it being effective, but you can expect all the bells and whistles on the Formex as well. Quick release, diver extension. You have that suspension system. Yes, it's going to be a Salito movement, but also it's going to be a Kosk Salito movement, right? It's going to be the highest tier SW200, if you will, that's been regulated in 6 positions. So that's my thing. Like, it's like they fall within different categories, but if it's a new watch collector, yeah, definitely Zelos, definitely Islander, definitely Brew. I mean, there's a long laundry list to that. Erebus for sure, because Erebus, he's a watch content creator, so he reviews watches. So of course, when he comes out with his watch, and we quickly seen him excel when it came to the Ascent. I like the way that went together. When it came to specifications, like, you can say what you want, let's say, about brand identity, which, by the way, that takes time, that takes years, or it takes a tremendous amount of money on top of what was already put into it for him. So having your own brand identity, I think, should be given grace and be given time, because you want the brand to also have blood into the business before they double down, right? And we're already seeing him do different things that people haven't done, right? Outside of having the brand identity, having those different size watches in the millimeters that we don't get from web-based brands, using quartz, a quartz movement that isn't so commonly used in his movements as well. So I listen, there's a lot that's gonna happen and unfold very quickly. I think the closer that we get to New York windup, especially, that's usually considered the mecca, and I think that a lot of brands save one in the chamber, if you will, for that show, where it's like not only a show exclusive only. Some brands do that, but also like, hey, we just came out with this watch, and you're going to be able to check it out in a couple of weeks from now. You're going to see a lot of that. What are we talking about? I'm going a million miles a second. I hope Mark and the Islander can survive this tariff. I think he will. BS Islander is making waves in the affordable watch for sure. For sure. And I think, listen, my money would be on the fact that he does, because he's just one of those brands where he has diehard followers, much like if we talk about Zelos, right? Like Zelos just has diehard fans. So I think that either way, it's going to be a hit for sure. Hopefully, those things digress and they die down and it doesn't become a big factor, if you will. Right now, it's kind of like a question mark still. Yes, they're being affected, but there's still a lot of unanswered information that's out there for it. I think we have to see that develop. But my guess would be that he will survive. Because here's the deal: Mark and Island Watch, they have an effect even on this channel, and even with me and me showing his watches and me talking about it. Why? Because I'm a diehard fan of Islander, and I want to make sure he's good. I want, if somebody is on the fence of making a purchase and maybe they come on here and they hear me talk about it, they are comfortable with making that purchase moving forward. I don't know if if I'm going to be the deciding factor. Please buy responsibly and do your own research. But yeah, at the end of the day, dude, like and for good reason, right? He gives so much transparency, he gives so much value outside of just selling watches. He's very transparent about, I'm making this video to sell a watch. So stop saying that I'm just trying to sell watches, because I'm doing that. But I think you have to be stupid to not also appreciate the behind the scenes information that he's giving, and the breakdowns and everything else that nobody is really doing. Now, some people can't do it because they're not a brand owner, to be fair, but he doesn't have to do that. So, rant over. Let me catch up, make sure you guys are good. The reason why micro brands offer great specs for money is no middleman or staffing. Eslan is one man show. Yeah, for sure, dude. They listen. And again, I had a conversation with somebody who collects luxury watches, and I came in as the guy talking about web-based brands, right? And the perspective was, web-based brands have so much traction. Let's say that, because I don't even want to say like they wouldn't make it if not, because I think that's BS. Because I think there's a lot of magic that happens when you go to these shows, or you connect with the brand owners, and you connect to the community that's into it. But for sure, web-based brands have the capacity to pivot a lot more because of their size, their overhead, for sure. They also have that room to be more daring, and they are. But they also listen to the feedback as well, and that's where they shine, and they're able to say, you know what, on my next batch, right? Boom, my next batch, because sometimes it's 100 watches. You could pivot all day long if your batch is 100 watches. Not saying that that's still easy, but it's a lot easier than recalibrating your machines that are used to manufacturing 9,000, 10,000, 50,000 watches at one pump, right? So they for sure are, they're squirrely and they're able to do that. All all the more complication watches with the big names own the space. The web-based independence brands shouldn't be held to that standard as much. Yeah. I agree with that. For sure. For sure. I got 3 Islanders. I'm crazy happy with all of them. And I'll tell you what, I also mention this all the time, and we've been bouncing back and forth between Zelos and Islander. And for sure, those are 2 brands that you can make multiple collections of. Like they're so wildly different. They have different SKUs. Now, Zelos, if you missed the boat, that's that. But for sure, Islander watches, Zelos watches. I'm gonna throw in Venetianico because you know how I do. I think those are all brands where I can see somebody wanting at least one of their watches for each of their collection, and that makes sense to me for sure. So we are about to land this plane. We're rounding the hour. We're going to keep it to an hour this time because your boy's hungry and has to get breakfast. So if you have any questions and you want to add anything before we land this plane about summer watches that you think is important, let me know now. Next time, I think we're going to talk about the subject I mentioned before. And we'll have some fun with that. So let me make sure I gave you guys all the watches. I did. So if you missed it, I'm going to do a recap real quick. So I have the Brew retrograde all loom dial on that theme, and this gives me a summertime vibe. Now here's the deal. It doesn't like, I'm not going to jump into a pool with this watch, right? So if my summertime vibe is going to the beach and going to the pool, no. But if I'm just chilling, maybe going out for a couple of drinks and just enjoying the sun or barbecuing and stuff like that, yeah, let this soak up all the rays. And if that's not enough for you, we could double wrist with a Noctua watch all loom dial as well. Let that soak in some rays, because when it's time for bedtime, it's like a flashlight. It's fantastic. If you haven't owned an all loom dial, it's so different. And what I love about the Noctua especially is that the hands are really dark, right? They go from that black base to gray hands. And when this whole dial illuminates, it's the contrast, the negative space, if you will, of the hands allows you to read the time. And same thing for the Brew. It doesn't have as, prominent, bold hands, but it lights up the whole dial to where you could even see the sub dials. You could see the whole thing. I'll give you guys some loom shots. Eventually, we'll do a deep dive review of the Brew as well, so you guys can see those lovely loom shots and everything else. We have the Cassiope that I showed you guys. Fantastical, especially when it comes to modding. This has a lot of options. AliExpress is usually where I grab things. I have this translucent case on it with the white strap. Definitely summertime vibes. So now this one is, I think, what is this, 200 meters of water resistance? Whatever. We know that this can take a beating. So versus the Brew, if I want to go to the beach, if I want to go work out, same thing with the Noctua. We have a screw down crown, screw down case back. Water resistance is there. I would even, imagine to say that the Noctua watch, I would work out and do some crazy stuff with this as well. The more beat up this gets, also, the better it's going to look because it's bead blasted. And then I don't know if you like a perfect bezel insert. Some people like that rugged kind of scratch look to it. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I would be brave enough to do everything. It has a robust movement on it. It's the NH38. So we know that Seiko is known for being able to take a thrashing when it comes to their movements. It's secured in such a case of, I believe this one's around a 42 millimeter or 40 millimeter. Whatever, it's a decent size. You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay to wear that. And then, of course, I don't track 2 time zones when I wear my Islander. What I use the actual GMT for is like a day, like a nighttime indicator, right? I just have it go for the same time and I let it go around. 24-hour indicator, whatever. It's just there just in case, I may take it on vacation one day with me. I also have the swatch that I put on a Montrose strap, white strap. You see a theme here: white strap, if not white dial, right? And this is not an all loom white dial, but we have the all loom white dials on these watches. And then if you want to throw some color into the mix, you could do something like this San Martin Skin Diver. Fantastic, has that summertime vibe for sure. On a Montreux leather strap, super what? Supple. You can't lose. You can't lose. So, with that being said, let me catch up on chat, and then we're gonna land this plane as my man is catching on. JC Watch, thank you for joining me, bro. I'll see you later. Appreciate you. Can I remove my seatbelt now? Yeah, buddy. Remain seated in the sun until the ride is over. I love you guys. You guys are great, man. Yes, the seatbelt sign has been put and illuminated up, and I appreciate you guys for coming on. Everybody on the playback, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. If you missed the live, let me know in the comments what your summertime vibe watch is and what are the requirements that you require out of that watch, because that's what I'm most curious about. What does that watch have to do? What does that watch have to look like? And what do you vibe with on that separate category for that summertime vibe? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys for spending your most valuable asset, which is time. And I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Have a fantastic weekend. Travis with the